I'm happy that you decided to join the skill workshop organized as a part of this year's ECMP. The workshop that we called the 5 Ws of stakeholder engagement. And behind these Ws, there are 5 questions: why, when, who, which, and where, that relate to stakeholder engagement into energy modeling and scenario building. This workshop has been prepared by my colleague Amanda Schiblein and myself. I'm Andrzej Ceglarz. We work for Renewables Grid Initiative, and we are involved in several projects several that sometimes cause problems, but we always find a solution to solve them. We are involved within RGI in several projects that involve energy modeling. However, we are not energy modelers. And this workshop has been prepared also with contribution from our colleagues from Climate Alliance, Wolfgang Hofstetter and Eva Schuba. Click. So what are the objectives of this skill workshop? So within this format, we wanted to share our experiences from the projects that we are involved in when it comes to stakeholder engagement. We want to show how did we approach stakeholders in our projects. We wanted to emphasize and to increase the understanding about the importance why stakeholder engagement is important for energy modeling and scenario building. But we also wanted to facilitate the collaboration and exchanges between energy modeling community and other stakeholders that we assume would join this session. And we also wanted to give some floor to you and learn about your experiences, about your insights when it comes to stakeholder engagement. Within this skill workshop, we will also demonstrate some practical examples about the activities that we did. Click. So how are we going to approach? So first, I will give some short introduction to transdisciplinarity and then co-creation. So in which theoretical approach the stakeholder engagement in energy modeling and scenario building is embedded. And then we will do some deep dives into 3 phases of energy modeling and scenario building to discuss either the approaches or to answer one of the questions that are guiding these sessions, one of the 5 Ws. Click. But before we start, also with this theoretical introduction, we would like to learn who's in the room today. Some of the faces we know, but not all of them. So in order to get the information who joined this session, we are going to ask you to select one of the categories that you represent. You can do it on slido.com. Either you need to join either the website and to type the number that you see above the website address, or if you use your mobile phone, you can also scan the QR code that you see in the left upper corner of your screen. Okay, so far 3 answers with okay, so we have more modelers. Good. So considering that I see that the number of people in the room is not so big, I would say that there's more modelers in the room, but we are happy to see also to have representatives of NGOs and civil society organization, representatives of research, but also a student. Okay, so we can go back to the presentation, and still to activate you on this Friday morning. There's another question that we would like to ask you. So already reflecting the first question, why do you think why to engage stakeholders in the modeling process? And that you can already type the question for that, and we will see the results as a word cloud. So let us give a few seconds more to have some impact. So I believe that would be the impact on the policy making process and probably on the way how the energy transition progress. That would be my take. I see that there's still one participant typing, ensure policy relevance. So that also refers probably to the impact to make models better, which also is an important reason, and create meaningful results, which also believe refer more to the modeling process itself. Good, thank you for these. Also, okay, I see that there's still one participant typing. Buzzword. So someone is not necessarily convinced, which is good, because the skill workshop should, as I mentioned, should also emphasize about the importance of stakeholder engagement. So let's move forward. Yes, and click. So that was the examples, and addressing another W question. So when to engage stakeholders, and another task for you. What is the best time to engage with stakeholders, as from your experience, as from the activities that you're running? So this will be more ranking exercise, and I see that there are participants that are using the ranking. It's very simple. We try to simplify it, and also some of the examples and exercise that we will present will be quite simplified. And I see that based on the answers of two participants from the audience, so far it's development phase. There's initial, there's final phase. We are still waiting for a few answers. There's still one participant ranking these replies. So let's wait.
I'm trying to send the answer, but it just says select options from the list below, and when I do, it still doesn't allow me to send in the answer. So sorry for that.
Okay. So,
I had to say you need to click on all three. So just like first, second, third. I also thought you only choose the one, but
no,
yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry, I thought that.
No, it's a good remark, and actually this also reflects our experience, because we know that it is important to involve stakeholders at each of the phases, depending on the reason why is it so. Okay, going back to the presentation. Now some theoretical background about the transdisciplinarity. So this concept has been developed since 1970s, and started with some structural observations between the practice and universities. So they started to raise some complex problems that different people, either policymakers or researchers or industry, started to notice. And one of the direction in which these people looked were universities, but which were quite highly criticized to continue developing science and research and theoretical approaches, but not delivering the answers which are relevant for the society. Click. And is especially in the 1970s, what the different stakeholders, also representing civil society, started to observe is that the world started facing huge environmental problems that not single actors would be able to address. Next slide. But what does transdisciplinary mean? So, according to the definition, is the role or the mean of transdisciplinarity is to use the knowledge by relating different epistemics, so the ways of knowing, the different realities that are represented by different stakeholders, either academia, highly embedded in research and science, or reality of the industrial actors, or the reality or the ways of knowing of the policymakers when dealing with these complex and relevant real-world problems. Click. And what should be the objective of transdisciplinarity of adding these different ways of knowing? It would be the mutual learning about among science and key stakeholders that includes not only representatives of one discipline but of many disciplines. Many of you know that if we combine different disciplines to come up with some valuable output, that would be interdisciplinarity. But if we add into that the knowledge or the information or the perception of reality represented by different stakeholders, that would be then the transdisciplinarity that should allow for mutual learning between all these actors. Next, this would allow for integrating knowledge from this different world, but also to allow to integrate the values and information from the practice into the science, as well integrating the results of science and research into the practice. So what the stakeholders outside of academia are doing. And click. And the goal would be the production of socially robust knowledge. Next slide. Here you can see in this figure you can see a graphical representation of the transdisciplinarity process. This figure comes from research based on phosphorus management, how to do it more sustainable. And on the science side, there are representatives of many disciplines that could tackle this problem of, in that case, sustainable phosphorus management from different perspectives. But on the other side, like below, you can see also different actors that have their own knowledge and experience while dealing with phosphorus. And by merging these different types of knowledge in between this, there's a, let's say, constructive chaos that brings this transdisciplinary process. Click. And here, to make it even more complicated graph, here you can see a graphical representation of the transdisciplinary process with several stages. And click. The first stage is you can see already on this triangle the division between science community, decision makers, and other stakeholders. They are called public at large, but not necessarily. And the first step to start this process is the identification of this real world problem that is socially relevant. And addressing this problem should benefit both research and the practitioners. Click. Then the second step. So once the issue is already identified, then these actors should come together and build equal partnership to launch the process and to agree to learn from each other experiences. And click. And then number 3, and this short blue part, this short blue stretch that you can see, this is part of the transdisciplinary process when all this creative chaos is taking place by co-creation activities. And those relate to many different parts of the research. This can be join the definition of a guiding question or a research question, if you prefer call it like that. Also a joint definition of the time frame, of the boundaries in which they operate, discussion about the values that they want to follow, and even the definition of a common language, because I believe that probably this is also something what you know from your own experience, that when even if you talk about the same thing, but with a person representing different environment or different background, probably you are using different language, or at the end you realize that you are talking about two different things. And the click. And the fourth phase is a post-processing phase, when ideally the solutions that were jointly developed are being implemented, and there's also a phase for reflection for that. And click. And as I mentioned, this third phase about the co-creation activities is the most important for the transdisciplinary process, because it allows into the research process to integrate and to refer to the realities, to the knowledge, to the values and beliefs of the actors outside, let's say, of the research or science bubble. Okay, click. So what does it mean? So it means that we have a complex real-world problem, how to progress with energy transition. It's a complex problem. It's not only environmental problem, it's a technical challenge, it's a societal problem. And we have the tools, we have energy models to deal with that. So how in this with this question, the knowledge, values, and beliefs of stakeholders could be integrated. Click. Here you can see on this slide, you can see a conceptual distinction between different phases when it comes to energy modeling and scenario building, that as stages are divided into specific stages based on the transdisciplinary theory, and that show different opportunities into which external stakeholders can be engaged and provided their input, and thus be active participants of the energy modeling process and scenario building process. So, of course, all stages are included or are under the umbrella of the entire research design process, into which the stakeholders' knowledge can already contribute. But there is also a phase dedicated to collection of the inputs. There is a middle phase dedicated to analysis, including model building or scenario building. There are results, so what the energy model brings, and possibly providing feedback to see whether the results align with the inputs. And at the end, when this evaluation phase takes place, there's the last phase, the final phase, when the outputs of the modeling process are created, and they can be published, they can be communicated, they can be disseminated. So this conceptual graph also corresponds with the two first questions, also those that we asked at the beginning, is why to engage stakeholders. So they may be different reasons. You can collect inputs, you can validate your results, you can communicate these results and the output. And when, that's the same is the same logic. Click. So now, after this short theoretical introduction, click. Now we will move to the first phase, the initial phase, to share with some of our experiences and to show you the practical examples how we addressed this initial phase. Click. Exactly. So the first phase, initial one, was about inputs, how to collect the information that would be used for the for energy modeling and scenario building. Click. One of the projects that we have been involved in the last 3 years, it was Sentinel projects. Sentinel stands for Sustainable Energy Transitions Laboratory. And the objective of this project was to develop an online platform that would integrate different energy models that would address all this complexity of energy transition. So models dealing with socioeconomic impacts, environmental impacts, technological aspects related to energy transition. Click. This is a structure of the project. I don't want to go much into the details, but what you can see as in the middle of this graph, the blue boxes, these are all these models. These are all these parts that address social, environmental, technological, economic challenges and energy models dealing with differentiated aspects of energy transition. Click. But to make them relevant and to provide some input into these models, we had also two work packages that highly involved stakeholders and provided input to make this project happen. Click. So what we did in order to identify user needs and in order to understand what actually stakeholders want to have from energy models of the future, we organized quite intense stakeholder engagement process, doing interviews, doing a survey, and finally, for this purpose, we also organized a workshop during which we collected input from the participants to understand what are the stakeholder needs when it comes to energy models. Clicks. And then we came up with 10 recommendations based on the user needs to see in which general direction the energy models being developed in Sentinel should go. So that was the first part, defining the needs and the baseline in which the project should develop. Click. But then there was also a second part, the case studies, and before allowing to run the model, we needed to understand what are the questions that are important and relevant for stakeholders. So what we did within 3 case studies that we have, you can see the national one, there's the Greek one, there's the regional one, the green one, the Nordic, and the European one as a continental one. We also organized stakeholders workshops to discuss with them the relevant and challenging issues when it comes to energy transition. And that would be relevant for modeling. And what? Yes, please. And we applied as a framework behind these activities an approach based on 3 types of knowledge. So where are we now when it relates to the current situation? Where do we want to go? So decarbonization. And the critical question would be how to get there. So what are the potential pathways? What are the potential interests of stakeholders that should be addressed by these different models? Click. And through these stakeholder engagement activities, we were able to extract and identify 185 research questions that served for our modelers as an input for the entire energy modeling process, and then they could proceed with their work. Click. But okay, so we organized these workshops. We collected research questions, but then there's also one point. If you involve stakeholders, if you want to collect the input, if you want to engage them into co-creation activities, there is an open question who to involve, from which target groups these stakeholders should come from, and where they should come from as well. So click. In order to identify them, we developed a structure that would allow us to differentiate between different stakeholders. On the one hand, we divided them, we simplified this distinction into model users, so people that are able or capable of to use the models also practically, but also of the users of the modeling results. So the people, so the stakeholders who are interested mostly in the results, not necessarily into the equation or the details of the programming. And here we included the distinction between policymaker, industrial actors, and civil society. Click. And so as the tool or the exercise useful for that, it's stakeholder mapping to identify your stakeholders. And now we would like to demonstrate a very simple task regarding the stakeholder mapping. And we would like to while showing you this structure, we also would like to ask you for your active participation. So we will not share the slide, but we will ask you for your assessment, where the different stakeholders, as you can see them on the yellow sticky notes on the bottom of the screen, to which category they should be assigned. So, and then you can see this division that we prepared. There's academia, there's industry, policymakers, and civil society. There are also some sub categories. And maybe let's start. So the professor at the technical university, in that case Delft, where this stakeholders should be assigned to. What do you think? Emir.
Academia researchers, maybe.
Okay.
Dark blue potential.
Okay, we can also disagree afterwards. So that's the first shot. So that's fine. An energy planner from Prague, where this person should be assigned. Diana, I see you're talking, but you're muted.
Yeah, I was looking, I was like, oh, there's nothing where I would put him. I mean, generally he's like rather from the planner side. So yeah, rather from business, maybe industry. But yeah, then there is only manufacturing, electricity, trade unions. I was wondering if there would be maybe there's one category missing, more like on the planning side. The ones like or what do you think? Yeah, someone is talking.
Sorry.
It's Robert.
Robert, where would you put him? Help me.
I'm wondering if energy planner is well defined. Like, is it the local policymaker who actually does the?
Oh right.
I don't know if energy planner is like if that would be the person in the executive sitting there and.
Oh right, if it's not the one like in the planning office, but rather the decision maker. Oh yeah, that
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe rather local. Maybe local policymaker could be as well. Then, yeah.
Okay, so we have an agreement. That's good. So we can put him into as a local energy planner. Good. So we have a policy coordinator at WWF. Who knows what WWF is?
Worldwide Fund for Nature. I used to work for them. So yeah. Yeah,
So,
definitely civil society, NGO, well, and maybe between social and environment. Maybe environment is a bit stronger, but they work also a lot on social issues, even with businesses. So yeah.
okay, perfect. So then we have a system developer at ENSOE. Who knows what ENSOE is? Robert, it seems that you know.
Sure. European Network Transmission System Operators. So that would be industry. Well, I mean, it's the electricity industry coming together there.
Yeah, good, perfect. So then
But
we have,
and maybe the planner would have been better on the industry side. So.
well, but it's in Prague, so it's very specific. So kind of indication towards municipality, and so. But okay, no more hints. Let's move forward. There is a social campaigner for Green Party.
Maybe policymakers on national level, if it's a country-specific Green Party.
If it's a campaigner, the question is, does that person really have any decision opportunity, or is it rather trying to get to the citizens? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe whether citizens, CSO, like rather to the civil society. Yeah.
Final answer. Okay.
Good. So there's also an advisor at the European Trade Union Confederation.
Well, we have trade unions in the picture, so.
Yeah, let's put him there.
That's a good indication, I believe. And there's also, policy officers at Young Leaders in Energy and Sustainability, abbreviation Yes Europe. That's a tricky one.
Well, I would them also to maybe civil society. I think they're not researchers, right? But rather like, civil society organization. Yeah, we'll put them there as well.
And the last one, policy officer at DG Energy.
Well, that is clearly
easy one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So perfect. We completed the task. I think that we managed to complete it properly. Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, that's the thing, is that it is a bit subjective, right? There are definitely pieces of the puzzle where stakeholders are several different entities. So it's, I think if there's a potential where people disagree, that's also an interesting conversation too.
Yeah. So it's just also to show you that stakeholder mapping, it's not a trivial exercise. It's an exercise that should be done if you want to involve stakeholders and you want to be aware who are you talking to. It also requires time and other resources to learn whether this person, whether the stakeholders that you approach is a proper person that could actually contribute to the work that you are doing. And although what we showed here are kind of like very general and simplified categories, in reality, the world is more complex, and some people are wearing multiple hats. So sometimes either at one point in time they are having one of their position, but it does not exclude them from having a different experience previously, or maybe in the point of time when you want to involve a specific person, this person works only a week or a month in a new position and previously worked somewhere else, which means then it causes additional problems how to identify and to how map this person. But despite of that, the most important thing is that you are able to identify relevant people, relevant stakeholders that would be able to provide you the information that you require. So thank you very much for your active participation, and let's go back to the slides. And after this mapping exercise, we move further. And Amanda, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So yes, after we have identified the user needs and the research questions, we've thought of which stakeholders to involve and from where. Then the next part is to really further develop your models with the scenario building and the data input insights. To come back to our research design process, this part of the process is the analysis phase. So again, we're really looking to translate the inputs into the model and to make sure that we have the right key parameters and assumptions. So in this case, this is where we want to discuss these aspects with the stakeholders. And for this example, instead of Sentinel, we'll be talking about the Y project. While Sentinel stands for Sustainable Energy Transition, the Y project stands for Climbing the Causality Ladder to Understand and Project the Energy Demand of the Residential Sector. The aims of Y are to improve the assessment of particularly household energy consumption, and to be able to properly model these consumption trends and to improve the policies around them. So including causal models into the energy system models that exist is what a big portion of the Y project is. And we're looking to improve the accuracy of policy implications in the residential sector. So for for discussing the key parameters and assumptions, we held a EU use case expert workshop to really look at these two different trends and to make sure that we're discussing the parameters and assumptions that matter to stakeholders. In this way, we were looking for what policy measures were the most important to drive energy transition in the EU. So from a policy standpoint, and then from a more technical standpoint, what sort of technical aspects should be considered when modeling energy demand. So again, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the model users. So more of the technical look of modeling and research-based approaches for model users. We had a type of stakeholder activity that has different objectives than the policy version, which was more for the modeling result users. So in this activity, we had two different breakout rooms. One was focused on the technical aspects, and one was more focused on policy interventions. And as you can see in the slides, there were different objectives, but similar approaches. For this, so again, we discussed the key parameters. In order to do this, we started with the energy policy measures. So we had different stakeholders that were policy experts, but also stakeholders from NGOs and other industries and we asked what kind of measures should be implemented in European energy transition in thematics. So in this particular example, you can see it's for the improvement of building performance. So everybody went into Miro, which we were just in earlier, and put their preferred measurements. And then from there, we kind of ranked these measures to find what sort of interventions would actually be most effective. And from there, after we kind of just had a brainstorm, then we used a prioritization matrix of discussing which of these interventions in the middle were most effective versus had different implementation barriers. And as you can see in this lovely matrix, there were some disagreements. So it was a good opportunity to also have a lively discussion about where we see potential solutions or potential policy interventions for our future energy transition, which all of these are inputted into the model so that it's a little bit more understanding of our reality and how to model for the future. Okay, so obviously this is a little bit more complicated than what we can do all in a hour-and-a-half skills workshop. So what I will show you for the interactive session of this is some other simpler prioritization that you could use when you're discussing with stakeholders to get a higher level understanding of where prioritization stands in assumptions and parameters. So let's see if I can bring it back to Miro. Yes. Also, I went through that fast. If there's any questions, let me know. Okay, cool. So other prioritization tools that are really helpful are dot voting, which you don't even, like, it's pretty nice because you can use this both for in-person stakeholder engagement, but also, as you can see, can totally be done virtually. You can use dot voting in a way for prioritization or in multiple levels. So you could have it where everybody has a color, or you could have it where everybody has a top 3 that is weighted. It can be as complicated as you need it to be. But what you could have is, okay, which is your favorite? What's your second favorite? What's your third favorite? And then everybody has their results and you can kind of see what is the preferred option. And as a second easy option for prioritization, we already kind of did this earlier, but if you really want to tell me what your favorite vacation destinations are, we can go into the QR code and we can use live polling, just like we did in the beginning, to be able to prioritize different questions.
Maybe can you zoom? Maybe Amanda,
Is it not working? Okay.
No, yeah, now it's
huge. All right, and then I will show everybody on the other side what it looks like. Okay. So this could be like as simple as like a icebreaker, like right now, or we could really utilize several of these questions to get to some good prioritization of policy measures or different assumptions that would be important to have in your energy system model. And it gets people engaged, and it doesn't, it's not a really scary open-ended question where there's maybe not a quick, good answer. Stimulates the thought process. Okay, so everyone's already missing the beachy seaside and the scenic mountains. I understand. Great. Any questions about this portion at all? Cool. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Amanda. So now we move forward, click to the final stage of this process, and click. So we had the beginning with inputs, the middle part that included analysis and contribution to scenario building, as Amanda mentioned. Now the final stage of the process that would be dedicated to the outputs, but also related to communication and dissemination, all of the results or the need for the for modeling, and this part will be presented by our colleague Wolfgang, who agreed to share some experiences from the project in which we work together from Y. So Wolfgang, the floor is yours. You just need to say click or the next slide for Amanda to change it.
Okay, so we have already the first slide. For dissemination, I bring an example from the practice. We have a city close to where I am located, the city of Maintal in Germany, and they want to construct a new neighborhood, a new district. And they request that this new neighborhood has to be energy positive. They did approach us and asked if our model, which is going to be developed within the Y project, is able to help them to get to a decision. Part of our complex Y model is a building model, and we hope that it can support and provide a decision for the city of Maintal. Click. The situation is, or what the suggestion from the model is to install PV on the roofs of the newly built houses. Use the solar energy, which is going to produce and transfer it, convert it into green hydrogen with electrolysis. Green hydrogen has the big advantage that it can be stored and, for example, could be used in winter time for the heating system. So that's the solution which the Y model is going to propose for the city. And the question is, how do we disseminate this information? Click. In our example here, we have 3 target groups which we want to communicate. The first one are energy system modelers and the research community. The second one is the municipal staff and the politicians in the city. And the third target group for our communication is the general population in the city and the residents who will live in this newly built district. Click. The question is, which communication channels are we going to use to reach these different target groups? In case of researchers, our modelers will present the results at a scientific conference or will write a publication in some scientific journal or magazine. Regarding the political level within the city or the employees, the city staff who is engaged with the decision making connected to this newly to build neighborhood, we have to approach the political parties. We have to convince the city parliament. A city usually has a lot of different committees, a construction committee, a financing committee, an environmental committee. We have to talk with them, and we do this by providing a paper. We have to set up meetings. We have to talk with them. Click. And now comes the question, your turn, how we can target the local inhabitants. Which channels, which features do we use or do we should use to get them aware and informed and on our side? So maybe you can propose some activities which we should have to work with the city and to get the local inhabitants convinced that our solution is a good one. We don't want to have activists, organizations being against us. So what do you propose? How do we proceed, and which channels do we use?
Good. Any ideas from the audience?
Maybe
Diana?
I have first a question. So if the district is newly built, do we know already who's supposed to live there in the future? Like, do we know already where these people are located? Or is it still open who will move in this newly built district? Because it's important, like where the people are at the moment.
It's going to be constructed. It's not yet built. Yeah, that means the people who will live there are not really known, but usually construction sites in the cities are scarce, and in the smaller cities, the city provides soil or sites for local people and not people coming from 500 kilometers away. So the target is, or the question is, to address the local inhabitants.
Sorry, and if I may follow up with a question. So the idea is, like, you want to engage with the residents because you want them to put pressure on the decision committees, the political parties, so that they take this move and say, okay, we will set the rules that in this new construction, everything will be according to the plan. So you need pressure on parties, pretty much. That is why you would want to engage the citizens, because once it's built, people will move there and they will just accept what is there. So you need to have the decision beforehand, right?
Regarding the political parties, you have to convince them because the city makes the decision. Yeah, but you still have the inhabitants, the normal people. And in this example, for example, with the hydrogen, it's quite innovative, it's new, and there could be some concerns, for example, regarding money. Maybe it's very expensive, this solution, or maybe some people feel it's dangerous, because if it's hydrogen, there may be an explosion, it may be dangerous. So the question is, how do we convince or inform the people? What are we doing? What do you propose? It's more a question regarding your stomach, I think. Yeah, which ideas you have.
So maybe Diana, do you want to say something?
Oh yeah, but you can go ahead. Like if you have an idea, Andre.
Yeah, yeah. So independently from the fact whether we agree about using hydrogen for a heating system or not, because I think that I personally I would not be involved in convincing people to use hydrogen for the heating. I would rather try to convince them to install heat pumps for direct electrification from their PV. But let's put that on the side. I think that we can share some examples what our members TSOs are doing when they involve with the citizens, not to convince them to build power line, but to inform them about the effects and about the solutions and about the possible alternatives. The direct communication of establishing an information office in a city center is the first step, so that the citizens have a direct access to a person that would inform them. If it's spread around different municipalities, there's also an idea of introducing a mobile office, so like in a van that goes around the area and informs people if they have interest in about the new power line. Of course, the kind of quite obvious communication but not implemented by everyone who would like to implement a project are dedicated website to have all information provided on the project's website that should be relevant for the people and that could be easily accessible. Of course, not with all technical specification, because normal citizens will not be interested in reading the technical plans of such infrastructure, but rather underlining the effects in their specific areas. And of course, with some sections dedicated to Q&As, but possibly also some videos, probably put also on social media if you want to address younger generation. So these are the typical means of the communication towards citizens that we know from our experience.
I want to add, I agree with Andre, but I want to add, for me, with my experience, I think it's very important that you have a good relation to the local press. Yeah. So you talk to them and they write some nice articles online or in the printed newspapers. A second thing, I would throw a flyer in each post box for each inhabitant, so that everyone has at least a basic information if he wants. And for the more concerned people, I would invite to something like workshops organized by the city, where the topic could be discussed. Yeah, that's the 3 points which I would like to add to Andre's ideas.
Maybe just to add, Wolfgang, like with putting something in the post box, you can also make a notice in the buildings, especially when there are more people living, which could be maybe an alternative. I was also thinking about this, something kind of like information events, like information meetings. You can also organize that maybe directly on the site if there are possibilities, or somewhere centrally in the city. And I think it would be also cool maybe then to invite people from other districts where similar transformations have already happened, like to share some experiences. That's usually kind of nice. And as I understood, you were also kind of concerned about technicalities. So maybe you can also invite, someone who's kind of maybe producing, for example, this hydrogen storage solutions, to showcase them to the people, that they can, you know, get some hands-on ideas of how these technologies work, and you know, to counteract maybe potential fears in their houses in the future. And I think something more consistent, if you have the money, I mean, what is always nice is kind of this idea of living labs. So be it like a van that is kind of transformed, or like a small, you know, setup, like infrastructure where you have permanent maybe information on the site, is of course something, also very nice, because then again, you can also maybe visualize like how you imagine that the district will look like in the future, to maybe explain more about the different technologies, also about your process, how you came up with the different solutions, and how they would kind of play together. I think this could be very interesting, if there is the financial capacities to do so. And then you could also have like some open hours where like a specific person would be there, maybe at the weekend, to meet someone directly. Or this is maybe something I think, as Andre put it, like if you want to have someone in an office somewhere being permanently there, maybe you can also have some smaller information side there. But yeah, these were the kind of the two things that came to my mind. First is information events, you maybe connect with coffee, you know, to get people there, and then this idea of a small living lab, or at least like something practical where people can experience this whole idea more on the hand.
Okay, thank you, Diana. You are having a lot of ideas. I think you would be the perfect energy manager for the city of Maintal.
Yeah, maybe. So I put into this what could be helpful. I put into slide 2 links, and maybe Amanda, you can open them and share the screen. Just to give you an overview, in the chat of be too much. If you don't see, I can also because then we in a different project, but this is related to, well, that was based on the power lines development, but basically this can be applicable to many different projects related stakeholder engagement. We have developed a dynamic model that would that structures different engagement possibilities depending. Hi, Kindia, can you please mute yourself?
Excuse me, sorry?
Can you please mute yourself?
Sure.
Thank you. Depending on the level of engagement, whether you would like only to inform or to make a common decision, and depending on the stage of the project, we have grouped different formats of engagement. So you can and different also methodologies that could be used for a specific stage and for a specific empowerment level that you can use for them. So it starts from a very simple telephone line and finishing on a complex multi-criteria analysis. And also, Amanda, if you can also open the second link, there is a decision tree. Okay. That there is a decision tree that allows you that structures different methods and formats or tools used for stakeholder engagement, depending on the audience that you address, but also on the resources. So something that Diana mentioned, depending how much resources you have to proceed with stakeholder engagement. So this is hopefully helpful for all the participants here in the audience. So you can have a look on that. And if you have any questions, also feel free to reach out to us because this is something ready and available. So just as a part of information sharing, this is for you. Okay, so maybe we can go back to the to the presentation, unless any other interventions from the audience.
I have a quick question. Now I see that I missed the raise hand function from Zoom. It feels like I'm interrupting when I'm jumping in. But Wolfgang, this decision to make this district, will that eventually be kind of a vote in some local, I don't know, election, or how will the decision be made eventually?
Finally, the municipality makes the decision. Yeah, and it depends on the majority related or coming from the different parties, how they view the whole thing. And in this Maintal case, it's a bit more complicated because they have a local housing society association, which is also involved, and they have the local electricity provider or utility company which has to be involved. So it's not an election or decision of the local people, but the experience is that you cannot construct something very innovative without having the local people behind yourself. Yeah. Andre said it's better to propose heat pumps. Well, I want to add the request from the city is to have a energy positive district, which means it should produce more energy when it consumes. And I have my doubts that it's possible with heat pumps. I know that, for example, the German government presses people to buy heat pumps and install them, but I'm not sure if it's a real good solution. And if energy system model predicts or shows that hydrogen could be innovative, I think we should at least discuss it. Yeah. If it's really innovative, people don't know nothing about it. It's very important to inform them, to have them on your side, to support it. You cannot today, in these days, you cannot, as a municipality, you cannot make a decision against your local population. Yeah, that's why it's very important to have, for example, to offer workshops and all these things which Diana did propose. Yeah, and the question is how you can reach this. And in nearly all the smaller cities or in all places today, we have environmental protection organizations, we have activists. If you have these activists against you, you are nearly lost. Yeah, that means as a city, you have to communicate with them, to include them, to create some working group, and to try to get an agreement with them. That's what I want to show you, that you need a lot of channels, a lot of hours, a lot of things to make sure you have the local inhabitants behind yourself. There is, of course, no election. No? Finally, the city, the utility provider, the housing company have to decide.
Understandable. Okay. No, but like from the perspective of getting the average resident on board on something, I think it's important to consider that they are not technical people in all cases, and that the impacts that this product might have on their lives should be kind of the selling point, if it's a positive one, and in which case it could benefit the city as a whole to kind of enforce the feeling of a prospering community. And also one thing that is usually pretty effective is, instead of quantifying that your energy bill will reduce by this much, or your carbon footprint will reduce by that much, is to compare to other cities, to kind of include this competitiveness amongst people, that our city is doing better than some comparative cities in the region due to this product. And that usually reinforces the feeling of that this is a good idea, because everyone kind of wants to have a community which is prosperous. So not to overburden them with technicalities, if the questions that they are posing are not very technical themselves.
We have a similar experience. Cities usually look, what does the neighboring city do? Yeah, and if they proceed, if they have a shiny project, they want to have it or to follow and do the same. Yeah, there is some kind of competition between them. That's our experience. That's true. And the other point is, if you have a working example somewhere close, yeah, you can go and look and check, and it's easier to convince them if you can show that it's running or operating somewhere already. No? Yeah, that's true.
And maybe in a positive sense, I mean, competition works. I agree, that's a nice idea. But also like to be part of a movement. I mean, there is now this movement of community that already said they want to become climate neutral, for example, or that say we only want to be powered by 100% renewables and be autark. So maybe also to show, look, we are not doing something which is completely new, but we're gonna be part like of a bigger movement that is already going on. That might be another idea to catch, you know, to have the feeling of like being part of something.
The feeling that they are the front runners.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I see that unfortunately Amanda got disconnected, and I received a message from her that she's not there anymore. But I will try to share the sorry. Can you? Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Works.
Okay. Okay. The proper presentation or the presentation mode?
No, not
No.
yet. We see us basically.
Okay.
And Wolfgang actually.
Okay, so I with my default settings.
We see the speaker usually.
Yeah. Status indicator. Okay, and now?
No. Nothing. Are you trying to share the whole screen or just a window?
The entire screen, but I think it's these are the settings. Okay, status indicator, Parkour build share. Okay, I will try also with this one.
Now we can see an empty screen.
Okay, now it's empty.
You could potentially drag your open screen to that area, left to right on the Mac, if that's another desktop.
So there are many desktops, and and that's the challenge. But so anyway, within the presentation, we were just going to an end, and the next slide was basically to ask you about whether you have any additional questions when it comes to stakeholder engagement and to the things that we have presented today, or maybe you would like to share your experiences or challenges related to stakeholder engagement in your project. So now we just wanted to give some floor to you.
Amanda is back.
Amanda.
So I actually have a question for Amanda, based on the presentation part where you were covering the analysis and you were showing the two different groups that were following the why. Let's see.
This?
Yeah, this one,
Okay.
exactly. So you divided up the technical aspects, or the model users and the modeling results users, into two groups. Did they have any chance to interact and co-create something together, or were they like divided through the process?
So in this activity, we did allow people to start in one, so they could start in the technical and then go to policy if they wanted. So there was at least that that mixture. It wasn't like exactly half would go from one and half would go to the other. But for the sake that I think it was also about a 1.5 hour activity, it's a bit difficult to do all of this and then go and do the other one right after. But I mean, luckily this project is still ongoing, so we do have more of those technical and policy interlinkages throughout our other activities.
Yeah,
Let's
and
see.
maybe to reflect on that. So what we observe in the activities that we do is also, so there's usually this technical part and this policy part. And the people that have also mostly modelers or other researchers that also have this technical knowledge, they are usually very happy to contribute to both parts, to the technical one and to the policy related. But if we involve other stakeholders, in that case, modeling results users, they mostly, in the biggest majority, have an interest in discussing, let's say, the policy related aspects, because the rest is too technical and too complex, and they do not feel that they are able to contribute much into the technical discussion. So there's always a challenge to find a balance. We try to design the activities in a way that give an opportunity to contribute to both, let's say, parallel work streams, but with a background knowledge that probably not all of the invited stakeholders would contribute to the technical one.
Would you say that combining the technical and non-technical profiles in this process of prioritizing policies or creating scenarios would benefit the point of the mutual learning that you highlighted in the what did we call it?
Transdisciplinary.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely. Definitely yes, because people with let's say, with having these different perspectives and kind of objectives that they would like to achieve with modeling, they point out to the aspects or to the points that, let's say, that the other group would not think about, and this is what we observed. Plus, it's also delivering or extracting a new information that, for instance, either from industry representatives or from NGO representatives, that is sometimes taking place on the ground, and it's not discussed fully in the literature that that is there, because I think we are aware how long the publication processes can take place, and sometimes the reality changes faster than the publication. So that's the additional value that enable, or the additional activity that enable this mutual learning.
And I have to think that if we did such a similar activity as this one with this smaller municipality exercise with different stakeholders, that we would also have probably different prioritization structures than just this one solution. So it's also like makes more robust options for the results users, right?
No, interesting work, definitely. I've been doing some similar activities in the ECMF project, so it's interesting to hear how others are conducting these policy engagements and co-developments and so on. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I may follow up with one question. I mean, for the municipality I see the very clear connection and like providing information that is not yet out there. If we go to EU level, you have 20 to 30 EU projects at a time discussing mitigation on a very broad term, and you have a limited number of EU officials that are there and that are connectable. So how do we go about getting a stakeholder to be interested and really participate with enough time that it makes sense? Because my impression is if you have a stakeholder for an hour or two, there's like, he has general points that he makes and you know them already because you saw them in presentation from another project and from whatever, so you don't get much out of it, and that person also doesn't get much out of it because it's 100th interaction thing. So how do we improve that in the future? That
you mean from a project point of view or from the EU officials point of view?
Well, both. I mean, if we don't make it better for both sides, it's like that's why I put buzzword in, because like where I see a real value in the like direct interaction on a local or national level, I think on the EU level, my experience were pretty bad. That it's really, if you do like full system analysis, the questions, you know them beforehand because you can't go into the real detail of how to implement a tiny thing because that's just not what these models can answer.
Yeah.
And then it's
I agree with that it's very challenging to channel the information at the EU level, especially that there is like let's say the competition over information while having so many different projects, and also concerning limited capacities of the EU officials. But there are 2 points. The first one is targeted information. So if you know that there is a policy at stake that is quite high at the political agenda, and you think that with your modeling results you can contribute into the discussion, you can do that, and probably that will be a very tiny part of the entire modeling that you are doing, not go with the full system analysis, because that would be very challenging to share and also to attract the attention of the official. And the second point is that relates to the first one actually, that depending on the aspect of the modeling that you take into account, you can actually attract much attention and even facilitate more structured exchange. And here, as an example, I would like to give the interaction that we facilitated concerning the sustainability aspects of energy technologies. And within Sentinel, our colleagues developed a module that deals with different sustainability criteria of specific technologies. And in that case, we started involvement not necessarily with representatives of DG Energy that have a lot to do, especially in the current times, but we reached out to DG Mare, that is dealing also with offshore development, considering different sustainability criteria when it comes to that. So we approached the topic from a different angle, knowing that there are some challenges in the offshore environment to attract the attention of specific policy makers that would allow to channel the information further. At the end, we actually had representatives of both DG Mare and DG Energy because of this kind of horizontal communication. But then the question is, what kind of information you would like to share, how relevant it is, and to whom, so that you can know who, like, to select properly the person.
I would add one point. If your information is important for municipalities, for example, on the European level, there's one initiative, it's called Covenant of Mayors, where we have 11,000, 12,000 European municipalities gathered and organized. That's the only initiative where municipalities and European Union work together without having the countries or the states or provinces in between. Yeah, so it depends, I think, what you want to communicate. Yeah.
And okay, thank you, Wolfgang, for this input. And I see that we are supposed to finish in 1 minute. So I hope Robert that at least partially these answers were satisfying. If not, we can follow up also bilaterally. But also to finish and click the last slide. Thank you very much for the participation in this skill workshop. Thank you for dedicating your time and also for preparation to our colleagues from Climate Alliance. But also to do some advertisement is I would like to say that we are in the process of investigating the stakeholder engagement in sustainability research process. This is a work that is led by Diana, who is also present here in the room. And since we know that in the last 2 years, the stakeholder, of course, it's great to meet people at the conferences, workshops in person. It's totally different world than having interactions online. But we know that for more than 2 years, a lot of these interaction formats moved online because of COVID. So already more than a year ago, we started investigating this topic, how the COVID-19 measures affected stakeholder engagement in energy research. Now we are broadening the scope of our research to see how it deals with sustainable research in general. And if you'd like to take part in the survey, I'm sharing it also in the chat. But there are also links given on the slide, and that would redirect you directly to the service from LinkedIn. And if you have it would be great if you, as a researcher, as a stakeholder, would complete this survey. So then we have relevant data to share with you the results after some time. And yes, and if you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So yeah, with this said, that thank you very much again for joining today. Thank you for also having an interesting and lively discussion. And yeah, and I wish you also very insightful last day of the conference. And if you have any other inquiries or reflections or feedback related either to stakeholder engagement or to the skill workshop, please let us know. So thank you very much, and have a nice rest of the day and a nice weekend.
Okay, thank you.